Are you okay?
Yes.
I'm really grateful to each one of you. You are really excellent at the participants. Every time you really invest your whole heart and mind and soul. That's why this workshop become very beautiful and really taught directly now intervene us. This morning, I'd like to talk about absolute sex and a peaceful, ideal family. Do you want to establish a peaceful and ideal family? Yes or no?
Yes.
And do you want to know what is the absolute sex as well?
Yes.
You know, this absolute sex, this content is, not just only talking about the sexual element, not just only talking about the prevention of the whole. Father said the content of absolute sex is, essential content of the Father's core teaching. If you understand very clearly what does absolute sex means, you can understand the whole content of the divine principle. That much important. That's why I think each one of our second generation, please listen carefully, and then what you learn from this lecture, you need to bear in your mind, and then you need to practice about the absolute sex. Aju? So that's why I will ask after giving the lecture, I will ask to many of the brothers and sisters, what does absolute sex mean? This is really, really important. In 1950s, Father he wrote Divine Principle, okay, while he was in Busan, okay, after came down from North Korea during Korean War. Father, he started to write Divine Principle. But later on, Father mentioned that he could not put the content of the absolute sex. If he mentioned about the content of the absolute sex in at the part of the principle of creation, Father said, I already become offering like Jesus. So he could not write the content of absolute sex. But Father said, my strongest desire was to put the content of absolute sex. That much essential, that much important content, absolute sex. Why absolute sex is that much important? I think each one of our brothers and sisters, you need to know. If we understand very clearly the content of the absolute sex, and then we can establish automatically ideal family, ideal nation, and ideal world. First of all, let's study Father's word here. Father said, absolute sex which needs to be maintained prior to getting married. The first stage of absolute sex is to maintain standard of absolute sexual purity prior to getting married. Means, Father said, not just only we are emphasizing to our brothers and sisters, our second generation, you need to keep purity. I think keeping purity is more greater than that kind of meaning. Very, very important. If you put keeping purity in your life of faith as a top priority, and then based on that foundation, you can establish anything: ideal person, ideal husband, ideal wife, ideal brothers and sisters, ideal family, ideal nation, ideal world, based on keeping absolute purity. Why? Why like that? Because absolute purity means this is God's blood lineage. God's blood lineage. Fall means what? Fall means what? Satan invaded to God's blood lineage. Once mixed blood lineage, impossible to change. Huh? So I was born as a Korean man, not woman. You cannot change. You were born as a woman, you cannot change. So even though you don't like your father and mother, you cannot change your father and mother. Even though you dislike, sometimes really, not much happy with your children, but you cannot change your children. Why? Because of what? Because of blood lineage. Once you, marry with somebody and mix the blood lineage, your blood lineage cannot change. Forever cannot change. That is the issue. When God raised up Adam and Eve as God's children, then they supposed to married by God. However, Satan invade, and then Adam and Eve have a blood relationship with Satan. The mixed Satan's blood lineage. This is impossible to change already. Already this blood lineage continuously carry on, descendant to descendant. How can change this blood lineage? This is impossible. That's why it takes a long time to changing blood lineage. It is impossible by human power to change blood lineage. Impossible. So in order to become God's children, the blood lineage have to be God's blood lineage. But already you mix the blood with Satan. How can change? That is the reason God suffers so much. Incredible suffering and incredible painful experience. So that is the reason God needs to send the Messiah. Messiah means what? Messiah means he inherited God's pure blood lineage. Pure blood lineage. So that's why those who unite with the true parents inherit God's pure blood lineage, can multiply God's blood lineage. That's why even though 2,500 years ago Buddha came, he cannot change human beings' blood lineage. Because Buddha was not begotten son. Not just God's only son. Confucius, he cannot change human beings' blood lineage. Even Socrates, Mother Teresa, any famous people throughout the human history, they cannot change the blood lineage because they are fallen people. God needs to have a pure blood lineage. Who will bring pure blood lineage as a begotten son? He is the Messiah. Then yesterday someone already gave a very clear lecture to you that, you are second generation. We are first generation. Our background come from fallen blood lineage. But through the participating, training, fundraising, witnessing, through all kinds of suffering, finally we receive the blessing from true parents. Drinking holy wine means cut off fallen blood lineage. Cut off. No more. And then we have also, as the first generation, have a special ceremony. That is a 3-day ceremony. This is really changing blood lineage ceremony. Everybody. And then first generation background and second generation background is different. First generation like me come from satanic background. But second generation background is different. Second generation background come from absolute pure blood lineage. That's why Father saying, as a second generation, anyone make mistake of chapter 2, Adam and Eve's problem again. Wow, this is really how to say, impossible to forgive. Impossible to forgive. That's why I really want to scold our first generation, your father and mother. They really understand the meaning of the absolute sex or not. They really understand what does pure blood lineage means. They do not understand. That's why they do not raise up our second generation properly. They do not know, some of them. I am second gen. I am first gen. What are you talking about second generation? That's why everybody need to know who I am. You are taught centering on God's point of view. God waited for the pure blood lineage more than 6,000 years. Waited and waited and waited and waited and waited. So many people sacrificed. Even Jesus crucified on the cross. In order to produce blood lineage, pure blood lineage. That's why anyone makes sexual relationship with other secular world boys and girls. This is really, I do not know how to express. How much terrible it is terrible. If you do not were born from the second generation, as a second generation, that is okay. Outside people, they do not know divine principle, they still okay. But you were born as a second generation, pure blood lineage, but you fall again. Oh my God. It is really more than Adam and Eve's mistake. More than anyone else, the mistake. That much serious. That's why Father talking about here. The first stage of absolute sex is maintained, or standard of absolute sexual purity prior to getting married. This why keep purity? Why keep purity? Why keep purity? Because God's absolute blood lineage. 맞아? 이놈의 자식들, 너희들 제대로 그냥 절대 성에 대한 의미도 모르고, 응? 제따이 되기나 새해가 나니까 또 실하나이 마마. 집분간 니세까 산세까 니세까 소래모 실하나이 마마. 순대이고도 도래고도 찜이비도까 와가루. And what is saying here? After we are born, we go through the process of the growth. We pass through infancy and childhood in a very safe and secure environment formed by our parents' love and protection. This is time we begin to travel the path of becoming a truly mature person, internally through the perfection of our character, and externally by reaching adulthood. Wow! If you have the pure lineage based on that foundation, I can become filial son, I can become filial daughter, I can become a true man and true woman, true couple, true parents, based on keeping heavenly blood lineage. Nobody discover about these problems. Nobody discover this secret between God and Satan. You need to know that only our true father and true mother, our true parents discover this principle. Throughout human history, nobody knew. Even Jesus never mentioned about this point. Only true parents mentioned this point. That's why we say that our true parents must be the Messiah. Otherwise, how can he discover this kind of the amazing principle? 맞아?